Andy, doors.
What you're seeing is Border Patrol agents descend on the Irving Park neighborhood on the north side of Chicago.
What's your badge number?
I've been reporting on police my entire career. This was an example of blatant violence, excessive force.
Like countless other immigration enforcement operations, this one descends into violence, ultimately leaving an American citizen with 6 broken ribs. As we've seen since the start of the second Trump administration, these agents are all wearing masks, and none of their identities were known until now. Thanks to records released as part of a lawsuit against the Department of Homeland Security, Wired was able to identify these agents and hundreds of others that used force against American citizens and undocumented people alike. Today, we'll break down how we identified these officers. This is Incognito Mode. Roving bands of masked, essentially secret police, taking people off the street and engaging in violence with American citizens has been a defining factor of the second Trump administration.
And that has really freaked a lot of people out. So that's really why I started paying attention to these raids, because there's something very distinct and very new in American law enforcement. It's not protest response. This is the use of not just immigration agents, but paramilitary units of the federal government to do civil immigration enforcement. And that is a huge break.
So when Ali came to me with this story, saying he'd figured out a way to identify a lot of these agents, I was immediately hooked. It's impossible to have secret police and have democracy at the same time. So I knew we had to tell this story. And I also knew it was going to be a lot of work. The way Ali started to identify these agents was thanks to some court records released as part of a lawsuit against the Department of Homeland Security filed by the state of Illinois.
Last fall, I started to look for a paper trail behind all the uses of force that we were seeing. And in the case of the feds, I knew the name of the system. It is an E-Star report.
E-Star reports, or use of force reports, document any time an agent uses any type of force. So this could be throwing tear gas, shooting a rubber bullet. Anytime there's any type of use of force, agents have to report this.
So I started looking at the litigation around the uses of force, because the allegation was that they were just wantonly using force with no regard for public safety. The lawsuit over Midway Blitz, the operation in Chicago, yielded the largest set of use of force reports. Through reviewing this docket, I was able to obtain dozens of E-Star reports. These were partially redacted, but by and large, the names of the agents, the names of the people arrested, the narratives of the incidents were left intact, which means you can see which agent from which agency was present at an incident and what type of force they used.
Using these E-Star reports, we've been able to identify hundreds of Customs and Border Protection, Border Patrol, and Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents. The E-Star reports give us some basic information, but to figure out who these agents actually are, we used LexisNexis, a data broker that compiles a ton of information about pretty much every American. This can include every address somebody lived at, their telephone number, email addresses. From there, we can take the little bits of information we've gathered, maybe the name of their spouse or an email address, and start to do some additional research. Another set of tools we use are known as open source intelligence or OSINT tools. Using open source intelligence tools, we can plug in, say, somebody's email address and link that to home address, other email addresses, phone numbers, and all types of other information that can help us narrow it down and know that we're investigating exactly the right person. Every bit of information that we gather, even if it doesn't seem important, gives us a fuller picture of who these people are and gives us 100% confidence that we're reporting the facts right. From the information that we were able to gather, we identified 2 units of Border Patrol, BORTAC and BORSTAR. These units were involved in an overwhelming number of use of force incidents. We also found that many of these agents appear in multiple cities, from California to Illinois to North Carolina. In addition to E-Star reports, the government was forced to release body cam footage as part of the Illinois lawsuit against DHS. The body cam footage provided a wealth of information. It showed us the actual incidents these agents were involved in. Crucially, it also showed their call sign, or a certain ID number that's actually used to identify them. Tell me a little bit more about the call signs.
So law enforcement, they don't, even when they don't wear badges or have their badges or nameplates obscured by body armor or what have you, is that the tactical units almost always have a alphanumeric flash on their shoulder or on their chest protector that identifies them to other units. And in going through body camera footage, you can see people are saying, well, what's your badge number? What's your badge number? What's your name? And they'll answer Romeo Zulu 3. That's all I have to give you. And that's their flash number. So that's how they're identifying themselves. So the best way to do the identification is to, with this data set that we developed, is to read the use of force reports, watch the videos attendant to it, and match the name up with the body camera footage, up with the flashes that you can see.
So let's take a look at one of these incidents from October 2025. We're looking at a video taken from inside a vehicle that's containing some BORTAC agents. This is body cam footage from an agent named T. Rico.
Yeah, so this is from the north side of Chicago on the morning of October 25th. So we're about 6 weeks into Midway Blitz. People are in Chicago are at this point very aware of the federal presence. So you'll be able to hear people following this SUV and a couple others in a convoy honking. These agents, Rico is popping his door now to go back and admonish.
If you want to continue doing this and impeding our investigations, you will be arrested.
A group of drivers who have been following them around. You can see that's another BORTAC agent, a tactical agent, dressed in their camouflage. That's another one right there from his unit. That's another one. This is Andy Chavez right here. They're admonishing these drivers not to follow them for impeding investigations. He's recording as well, the backseat passenger. The feds are also make sure to take note of license plates as well and send them to their Central Operations Command as well for intelligence on people following them.
Right, because they've been, in some incidents, they've gotten people's license plate numbers and then they show up at their house as another form of intimidation against these ICE watch groups and et cetera.
That's right, and you can also see from the inside of this vehicle, their accoutrements, right? So right here, this is an M4 rifle with holographic sight and a telescopic sight. Don't know why he has both sights on, but this is a military grade weapon. It's equipped with a flash suppressor as well. Each BORSTAR agent, each one of these paramilitary agents has one of these rifles on him. They've each got 3 or 4 spare magazines on their vest. Mind you, this is Saturday morning. There is a children's Halloween parade about to happen on this street, and they're doing civil immigration enforcement geared up like this, right? You can see at one point, a little bit forward, the agents stop. They hear something on the radio.
Wait, stop. Andy, doors.
About a runner, right? So T. Rico pops his door, takes off sprinting after this man. So does Andy Chavez, whose body camera, by the way, is also rolling. Chavez tackles this man, a Latino man who was running from federal agents, cuffs him up.
Cuffs.
And they're almost immediately surrounded by residents who are livid. They are, screaming at them to get off their lawn. Where's your badge number? Mind you, this right here, that is Andy Chavez's unique identifier, Romeo Zulu 17. And that's how his other comrades know who he is, right? I mean, you can also hear them refer to each other on the audio of these body-worn cameras. And that's, we go through the reports, we go through the footage, we listen to it, and that's the kind of groundwork we do in order to establish their identities. So you can see them cuff him up, right? This is what the immigration enforcement looks like.
Get off my fucking property, you hear me? This is private property. Get off my property.
So I think it's important to point out, this isn't just happening to this one guy who's having a knee on his neck. It's happening to this entire community, and this is not how ICE, how CBP, Border Patrol has typically engaged themselves. This is an intentional choice to terrorize everyone in this community.
Yeah, I think it's worth noting too, like how upset people in this neighborhood got.
Take your fucking mask off, you coward. Take your mask off, you Nazi.
They didn't see the feds apprehending this guy as the government coming to protect them and take dangerous people off their street. These sweeps are deeply unpopular. They're shredding communities apart. And for all we know right now, per the documentation that we've had through this lawsuit, this man doesn't have a criminal record. They are not going after the worst of the worst. And they're using basically the equivalent of a military unit to do it.
And it's important to point out, all these BORTAC agents that we can see in this video are all masked. None of these people know who these agents are. None of the people in the community know who the agents are, and they don't really have any way to find out. It's only through this lawsuit, months after the fact, that we've been able to identify some of these people, but nobody here has any path to recourse. They're just at the mercy of these agents, and they're all completely anonymous.
Well, you can see them documenting the situation too, because they want to keep a record. They're trying to figure out who these people are, what's going on here. But again, in order to get some sort of recourse, civil or criminal or otherwise, you have to know who these folks are. And These E-Star reports, these use of force reports, are how we figured out that this video happens to be shot by Agent T. Rico, that Andy Chavez of BORTAC, his BORTAC colleague, was right next to him. But otherwise, residents on the street, when I called them up to interview them about this story and tell them about our findings, they had no clue who these folks were. So this encounter didn't end there, because this entire neighborhood was really, you can see that they're refusing to let the feds leave. They're furious.
There's literally a guy in a bathroom.
Trying to be understanding. You guys are scaring our kids.
We'd be out of here if you guys would get out of our way.
No, you shouldn't even be here, man.
Saturday morning.
Saturday morning,
Right before a
regular
Halloween
neighborhood.
parade. And now things start to escalate. Border Patrol agents run ahead and make contact. This car stops behind them. This is a resident of the street named Michael Brosolo. He's pulled up behind them. He was out. He comes back from his training run, and you can see these agents rush up to him immediately because they think he's trying to keep him in there. They're like, move your car, move your car.
Driving down the fucking
Move your
street.
fucking car, get the fuck out of here.
Driving down the fucking street.
He gets pissed off at them. He says, this is my street, what the fuck are you doing? And they're telling him to move his car. You can see a canister of tear gas has been popped already in the background. And now Brosolo gets taken to the ground by this agent, T. Rico. And this agent is about 6 feet, almost 190 pounds, pins the guy to the ground, has his knees on top of him. There's an ICE watcher right there who's also getting taken to the ground. Her name is Maria Bryan. She and Michael Brosolo each have about half a dozen ribs broken during this encounter. And they were arrested for quote unquote impeding the federal agents, right? Not charged criminally, no charges were ever filed. But both of them had half a dozen ribs broken by these masked, heavily armed federal agents.
Let me go. Get your hands behind your back.
Federal immigration agents, like many law enforcement officers, have a use of force protocol. They're supposed to kind of escalate in a very deliberate manner. In this, you see them going from yelling at this guy in his car to throwing him on the ground and breaking his ribs in just a matter of seconds.
It's 0 to 60.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem like they're going through the protocol. And maybe they can claim, yeah, I told him 3 times and that's part of the protocol, etc. But it's very unlikely that anything is gonna actually happen just because they escalated so quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I think having watched so much body camera footage over the years, what stands out to me about these incidents is how fast these tactical agents go to force, right? And you can see this also in the secondary arrest that happens right behind in the background of this young woman, this ICE watcher. So from that agent who tackles her from behind, in his body camera video, in Javier Puente's body camera video, you can see him going up to her, shoving her forward and saying, why'd you hit him? Why'd you hit that officer?
I'll tell you, you hit him. You hit him. I'll tell you, you hit him. Why you hit him?
So now, by saying that on his camera, for audio, he can take her to the ground and arrest her for assault, which he does and proceeds to severely injure her. And I think that, to me, is one thing that does help define why we see so many assault on officer incidences in these reports. In some cases, yes, they do get rocks thrown at them. In some cases, yes, people do throw punches at them. But in many instances, they are initiating the contact, right? They're the ones throwing the pepper spray. They're the ones pushing people back and then shoving them, hitting them again with batons, firing less lethal weapons at them, firing pepper balls at them. It's just a very rapid escalation of force. I can tell you from looking through these dozens of use of force reports over a very tight period in Chicago, the agents that we're talking about, the BORTAC and BORSTAR agents, they're overrepresented in the data set. They use force in more than 30% of the incidents, despite making up less than a quarter of all the total agents that we can see in the use of force incidents. And not only that, they occur within a really tight period. We're talking about some agents who use force 5 or 6 times in a matter of 2 months. That's considered extraordinarily high.
Is it just a nature of people being angry about how immigration enforcement is going forth right now?
So I think there's a few things happening here. The civil immigration enforcement is occurring in a completely different context than it has prior. Method of operation is designed to create tension and create conflict. I believe that's something the White House wants. However, at the same time, the units that we're seeing, they're not trained in de-escalation. They are trained to use force. They are trained to subdue. This is not a matter of units being under-trained. They do nothing but train. They're very well organized. They deploy out into a perimeter. They make space really well. I've shown these body camera videos to a number of veterans. And what they've said is like, yeah, that looks like how we treat a disabled vehicle if we'd wrecked out in Marja in Afghanistan, right? I think that speaks volumes. This is nothing like policing. The deal with BORTAC and BORSTAR is that they are trained for contact. They have looser rules of engagement. They also don't have to go back into these communities and build relationships with people. And I think that's the biggest difference here, is that a police department is ultimately accountable to their communities. With ICE, there's not that same consideration. It's just force.
Regardless of how you feel about US immigration policy or how that policy is enforced, the fact of the matter is that every law in the United States is derived from the Constitution. The government gets its authority from the people, and if the government is deploying anonymous agents that are arresting people on the street without any due process, that puts these agents above the law and undermines the Constitution. It is for this reason that we decided we need to publish these names. This has been Incognito Mode. Until next time.